Hello and welcome to my channel. I've made a lot of progress on my tiny cargo trailer conversion and I'm ready to share. Welcome back and thanks for being here. It's been a long road to recovery for this trailer. I can't believe that it's been sitting in my driveway for nearly 2 years unused. Quick summary, I started off with wanting to convert this into a tiny sleeper. And so that began with me removing the walls so that I could insulate. And when I removed the walls, I found leaks from the roof. So then I went to repair the roof and found problems with the roof. And that was a very discouraging project. Check out my video on the roof. I'll link it up here. I'm not going to talk about it here. I finally got that roof done. That was a big challenge. While I was procrastinating and finding my new path for the roof, I went ahead and overhauled the electrical in here. The electrical, particularly where it comes in here on this side of the trailer, was just atrocious. And I'm not going to talk about that either. Go check out that video. You'll see how I did my electrical to fix it or just make it better, I hope. And certainly to color code all the wires properly so that I didn't have to guess which circuit I was looking at if I had to trace a fault. Today I'm going to talk about what I've done with the interior. Once I got the roof completed, that was my biggest challenge, working on the roof. And I also managed to clear out a spot in my garage so I could put the trailer in it. I've got a small garage, and so I don't put cars in it, I have stuff in it. I'm one of those. I got the trailer into the garage, and that gave me a lot of freedom to work without regard to the weather or anything else. And I just got to work. My first task at finishing the interior was to insulate the walls and ceiling. And as you can see in these photos, I used the green stuff. A lot of builders like the blue stuff or the pink stuff, or maybe even foil-backed stuff. My local hardware stores did not have any of that. So I went with what was in stock. Cutting the foam to fit the rounded nose up in the front of the trailer was a bit of a challenge. And it certainly isn't perfect, but that's okay. This is a cargo trailer first and a sleeper second. I'm not building this as a dedicated conversion that I'm going to live in or stay in for extended periods of time. I cannot stand up in this trailer, and there's certainly no real living quarters. So I can tolerate that things up front aren't perfect. My goal was not to make this a super efficient, perfectly insulated camper. Instead, I wanted to improve what was at first nothing. So hopefully I've improved my trailer, and I don't need it to be perfect. My first task after getting my wires first ran was to install the ceiling. I put the ceiling up first. The ceiling is a piece of leftover beadboard from my shed project. I don't know if you can see the shed in the background, but I insulated and then walled in the shed with beadboard. I had a piece of leftover beadboard and I used it here in the trailer. It's cut a little too short because I had cut it to heights for the shed, and so this could have been another inch or two longer, but I went ahead and did it anyway. I've got some flaws in the front of the trailer. I will show you later and tell you about my solution to that. The finish on the beadboard is a little fragile, I discovered. It's a very thin laminate, and just running a jigsaw over it to cut the nose out was enough to mar the finish. So I topped the finish with a coat of, well, 2 coats of latex interior. I did it in matte white, and that was all after I had cut out the opening for the ceiling fan. Trimmed everything off pretty well, the ceiling fan anyway, and then I put everything up using truss head screws. I needed to have, I wasn't really looking for an air gap, but what I wanted was a gap that I could run wires through. And so I have between the frame members and the beadboard wall, little pieces of 1/4-inch wood like this up in the ceiling above the ceiling. And what that did is that allowed me to have a 1/4-inch gap to run wires through, and that's how I got the wires out of the wall here and then up into the ceiling for the ceiling fan and this forward light behind me. Once the ceiling was up, then it was time to tackle the walls. I almost forgot to talk about the floor. When I put in the floor, that one was kind of challenging. I mentioned the tight fit of the walls. The floor fitment was even tighter. It was very challenging to get it in there, and I didn't refinish the floor. I considered painting it. I considered putting Rhino liner or Herculiner on the underside. And the trick with this, the floor is pressure treated, and when you bring it home, it's wet, and you can't put any treatment on the floor or on this pressure treated wood until it's dry. Well, when it dries, it has the potential to warp, and then you have to wet it again to straighten it. So what I wanted to do was get it straight, because I still had to straighten it on my driveway, and then get it in the trailer before it has a chance to warp. So I got everything screwed down and allowed the wood to dry straight, and then maybe after the fact I will put something on it. But for now, all I've done is put this foam matting on it. It is a faux wood finish, and it looks all right. I don't know if it's very convincing on the camera or not. In person, you can definitely tell that it's foam. And then under here, you can see that my wood is unpainted and untreated, and I guess that's okay for hauling cargo. I could just throw whatever I want in here and have no worry about the wood getting damaged, because I'm just going to put the foam back on top. The foam, it looks good, but it's not terribly durable. You can see here where just me cutting it with a pair of scissors, this finish, this look is just a laminate, so it's kind of fragile. You can see up here some places where it broke. I'm saying it broke, but the top laminate cracked. So I would not want to put anything really hardy on this. When I say hardy, I'm talking about my cargo. So if I were to just throw metal in here or even heavy wood, there's a big chip of it right there where just me using scissors to cut that corner out cause it to chip or crack. Overall, I'm happy with it, and I will just remove it when I want to put in some serious cargo. Another option that I'm looking at, before I started on this conversion, I had black foam matting in here, and I eventually cut out some places for E-Track, and I had E-Track in the trailer. And I have to say honestly that I never used it, but I do recognize a value of being able to strap down my cargo. So I'm not quite sure what I want to do. I might just switch back to regular rings, maybe just 6 or 8 of them. They're lighter, they take up less space, and they're more realistic for what I'm likely to carry in this trailer. I don't know, I'm going to think on it. The walls on the factory trailer are 3/8 inch plywood, and it's very tempting to maybe move to 1/4 inch instead to save weight, especially for someone like me who's towing with a small car. Weight is important. But you have to remember or know that the walls in these trailers are structural. So I was not going to downsize to 1/4 inch on the sidewalls anyway. I also wanted smoother finish on the walls, and I wasn't going to sand those. The walls that came with the trailer, there's nothing wrong with them in a cargo trailer application. If all you're doing is throwing stuff in here and it doesn't matter their condition. But I wanted the walls to be smooth, a little bit cleaner looking. I could not find smoothly finished 3/8 inch plywood at any of my local stores. So I upgraded, I guess, to 1/2 inch. So I have 1/2 inch walls on the sides, and then I actually did downgrade to a 1/4 inch wall in the front, and I'll explain why in a second. The challenge with getting the walls in, I wanted to make everything as big as possible so that I didn't have any gaps that I needed to fill. And that's kind of tough in a small trailer. I think the guys who are doing the big trailer conversions, I don't want to say they've got it easy, but I think they've got it easier because they've got the big fold down ramp door that you could just walk right in. With this little opening here, it's just barely big enough to get these walls in here. And then there's a fine line between maximizing the space and then being able to tip the wall up without scraping the ceiling while it's rolling up diagonally. And so I do have about, I'll say about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch gap at the top, and then there are gaps at the front. And that's the way they came from the factory as well, because you can only go in so far before you have to angle it to get it past the door opening and then wiggle it into place. I think I got it closer to good fitment than they did at the factory, especially on the front wall. The front wall I changed from the 3/8 inch plywood because the 3/8 can only bend so much. I got some bendable plywood. Now this is 1/8. This is not what I used up there. I used 1/4 inch, but this bendable stuff, it allowed me to cover more of the front wall than the way it came from the factory. I'll show you a factory photo where that 3/8 inch plywood, it'll bend, but only so far, so they can only make it so wide. With the bendable plywood, I was actually able to go all the way out to 48 inches with that and come really close to bending it around the corners. To finish off my corner caps, the factory used the flashing, aluminum flashing, and you know, that's okay for a cargo trailer, I guess, but I wanted something a little bit cleaner for this. And also my aluminum flashing was practically destroyed when I move everything all out, and so I want to be able to remove this flashing, especially back here in these corners where I might need to troubleshoot some wiring. So I wanted it to be easy to remove, and so what I did is that's where this 1/8 inch wood comes into play, because it's like you can see, it's very flexible. I cut it into 6-inch strips for the front and 4.5-inch strips for the back, and they're just held by screws on one side so they can flex if the trailer flexes, and they're very easy to remove. Like back here in the back, they're held in by 4 screws, I think. Yeah, and all of them. They're held in by 4 screws, and so it's very easy to remove if I need to for some reason. The gaps, by the way, are smaller at the front because of the way I was able to cut the wood a little bit longer. So I think it came out cleaner. Once I got my gaps filled, then it was time for me to finish off the ceiling. I guess I can point this way. I don't think you can see that in this current view. I'll show you some B-roll to show you the crown molding that I have at the top. For the crown molding, I needed something flexible, and most crown molding, especially if it's thick, which I would have liked some thick crown molding, but that's not very flexible. Instead, I went with a 1.5-inch PVC lattice because I needed, again, something to flex at the front, and this was perfect for that. And because it's 1.5 inches, it gives me a lot of wiggle room for where I can put a screw. And so I just have the lattice held in with screws. And with the exception of the flaws at the front of the trailer, I think everything turned out pretty well. The back of the trailer, not necessarily a great solution up here because I couldn't screw the ceiling into the structure at the very front and at the very back. At the front, I solved that with some little angle brackets, and I did that on the floor up here in the front too, because the front wall, it too could not be fastened with screws at the very top or at the very bottom. Here at the back, I have something temporary in place just to hold the ceiling steady, but I will finish this off with another. Right now I've got a 2x4 right here, and then I will put a 1/2-inch piece of wood up here at the top, and then I will use angle brackets on this as well, and that will hold everything very steady. And this 2x4 is basically screwed into place using screws here on the outside. I do have small gaps in my coverage up here at the very top, and I can live with that. I might finish it off with tape or something, or I can probably just leave it be. It's small potatoes, and you're never going to see it. I mean, I'll show it to you right now, but somebody standing outside the trailer is never going to see it. I can only see it if I look up there at it. My solution for addressing the gaps at the front, I'm going to grab some rope caulk. It is kind of a molding putty that is paintable, and I'm just going to stuff it in those holes and pack it in until it's nice and flush with the ceiling, and then put a little bit of satin white paint over top of it. That will certainly not be perfect, but it will fill in the gaps and be a little more attractive, or maybe less unsightly than a gaping hole with foil behind it. But the better solution that I'm going to work on, and I'll share that with you in my next update, I'm going to put a little cabinet up there. The cabinet is, I can't get to any structural members where I want to put the cabinet, so it needs to be small and light. And so the cabinet is going to span the width of the trailer, and it's only going to be about 10 inches wide and 10 inches tall. Kind of a little mini boutique cabinet, if you will, purely cosmetic. I'll probably be able to put some stuff in it, maybe some gloves or a knit cap if I get cold or something like that. Certainly nothing very heavy, nothing very permanent. I mean, I can toss my cell phone in there, I suppose, and I don't know. I have hopes that it will turn out good and look good because, again, it's just a cosmetic piece, and then that will hide my flaws at the front of the trailer. I had originally planned to share details about the electronics package behind me, but that sequence was much longer than I expected, and I really don't want to put out a 40-minute video this week, so I will share that next week. I appreciate you being here, and I will see you next time. Take care. A cabinet in the front. I do not need a large cabinet. I don't even know if you can hear that plane. They always come over, right? Planes, birds, kids, loud cars, motorcycles, always when I'm trying to record. Can't I just have some peace?